Daf Yomi Tractate Sanhedrin, page 104, A. Top of the page with the words Me'amon and Moab, from Ammon and Moab. Although they were relatives of the Jewish people, as they descend from Lot, Abraham's nephew, it is prohibited for a Jewish woman to marry a convert from either of those nations, because they failed to provide bread and water to the Jewish people in the wilderness. Mi Yisroi. Diamar Yochanan. Bischar Kirein Lo Yovecho Lechem Zachu B'nei Bonav Yehoshua Lishkas Agozis. And the fact that it draws near, let's see, let's turn this direction. Someone told me that the Kotel Hamaravi is this direction. So I'm going to trust them, and because I am in Jerusalem, the holy city of Jerusalem right now. Okay. And the fact that it draws near the distant is derived from Yitro, Jethro. As Rabbi Yochanan says, in reward for Yitro telling his daughters call him that he may eat bread, Exodus 2:20, inviting Moses to join them for a meal, Yitro's descendants were privileged and sat as scribes in session with the Sanhedrin in the chamber of hewn stone, Lishkat Hagazit. Shenema mishpachoy soivchem yoshvei yabetz taratim shimatim Suchatim Hemakinim Aboy Machbas Avi Beit Rach Rechav Ketiv Hasam Ubnei Keni Choten Moshe Alu Meir HaTimarim Et Bnei Yehuda Idbar Yehuda Asher Benegev Arad Vayelech Vayeshev Et Ha'am. As it is stated, and the families of the scribes who dwelt in Jabez, the Tirathites, the Shemithites, and the Sukathites. These were the Kenites who came of Hamath, the father of the house of Rechab. 1 Chronicles 2:55. And it is written there with regard to the identity of the Kenites. And the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up from the city of the palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad, and they dwelt with the people. Judges 1:16. The fact that it averts eyes from the wicked is derived from Micah, who was not punished because he provided bread to passerby. And the fact that it causes the divine presence to rest on the prophets of the Baal is derived from the colleague of Iddo the prophet, the elderly prophet who convinced Iddo to eat with him contrary to the directive of God. When Iddo went to Bethel to prophesy to Jeroboam, as is written, it happened as they sat at the table that the word of the Lord came to the prophet that brought him back. 1 Kings 13:20. Although the elderly prophet was a false prophet, he was rewarded with true prophecy as a reward for hosting Iddo. Shigagata ola zadon, Amar Yehuda Marav, Ilma lehivi va'u Yonatan leDavid shtei kikaros lechem lo ner lenov ir hakohanim. ולא נטרד דואג הדומי, ולא נהרג שאול ושלושת בניו. and the fact that an unwitting transgression with regard to it is at times considered an intentional transgression is derived, as Yehuda says, that Ram says, had Jonathan lent David 2 loaves of bread when he was fleeing Saul, David would not have sought sustenance from the priests in Nov. The residents in Nov, city of priests, would not have been killed, and Doeg the Edomite would not have been banished from the world to come. If only. And Saul and his 3 sons would not have been killed as punishment for that massacre. If only me auntie had bollocks, she'd be me uncle. I had to do it. Okay. If only. You're playing the if only game. If only this and that. No, things were going a certain way. The arrow of time points a certain way. מפני מה לא מאמנו אז אחז אמר רבי ירמיה בר אבו מפני שמוטל בין 2 צדיקים בין יוסף וחזקיהו רב יוסף אמר מפני שהיו לו בוישס פונים מישעיהו שנאמר ויאמר שמן ישעיהו צא נא לקראת אחז אתה ושאר ישוב בנך אל קצה תעלת הבריכה העליונה אל מסיל הצדק כואבס מי כואבס יגדה אמרי דקבשינו להפה וחלב יגדה אמרי אוכלה דקצרי שיחה ורשת וחלב. The Gemara asks, and for what reason did the Tanaim not enumerate Achaz among the kings with no share in the world to come? His wickedness is extensively recounted in the Bible. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says, he is not enumerated because he is cast between 2 righteous people, between his father Yotam and his son Hezekiah. Rav Yosef says he is not enumerated because he had a sense of embarrassment from Isaiah the prophet, as it is stated, and the Lord said to Isaiah, go out now to meet Achaz, you and She'ar Yashub your son, at the end of the aqueduct of the upper pool in the highway of the launderer's field. Isaiah 7:3. What is the meaning of the term koves? There are those who say it means concealed, kavash, as Achaz concealed his face and passed by the prophet because he was embarrassed to be seen. And there are those who say he placed a launderer's vessel over his head and passed by the prophet so that Isaiah would be unable to identify him. מפני מה לא מנו את עמון? מפני כבודו של יאשיהו. מנשה נמי לא נמנה מפני כבודו של חזקיהו. ברא מזכי אבא. אבא לא מזכי ברא דכתיב. ואין מידי מציל. אין אברהם מציל את ישמעאל. אין יצחק מציל את עשיו. השתא דעתת להכי. אחז נמי לא ימנה משום כבודו של חזקיהו. The Gemara continues and asks, for what reason did the Tanaim not enumerate the wicked among the kings with no share in the world to come? The Gemara answers, he is not enumerated due to the honor of Josiah, his righteous son. The Gemara challenges, let us also not enumerate Menashe due to the honor of Hezekiah, his righteous father. The Gemara explains, the son confers merit upon the father, as it is to the father's credit that he raised the righteous son. But the father does not confer merit upon the son, as it is written, none delivers from my hand, Deuteronomy 32:39. Abraham does not deliver his son Ishmael from the judgment of heaven. Isaac does not, but it says that Ishmael repented in the end. So why are you saying that Abraham doesn't deliver his son Ishmael from judgment? Isaac does not deliver his son Esau from judgment. Okay. The Gemara comments, now that you have arrived at this understanding, Achaz too was not enumerated in the Mishnah due to the honor of his son Hezekiah. Yehoshua Rabbi Chia Rabbi Yehuya Rabbi Chia Rabbi Yehuya כתיב על גולגלתו של יקים זאת ועוד אחרת. זקנות רפרדה אשכח גולגלתה דהבי קשניה בשערי ירושלים וכתיב בה זאת ועוד אחרת. קברה ולא יקברה, קברה ולא יקברה. The Gemara asks, and for what reason did the Tanaim not enumerate Jehoiakim among the kings with no share in the world to come? His extreme wickedness is described extensively in the Bible. The Gemara explains it is due to that which was stated by Rabbi Chia, the son of Rabbi Avuya. As Rabbi Chia, son of Rabbi Avuya, says, it was written on the skull of Jehoiakim, this and yet another, indicating that he will receive a double punishment. The Gemara relates that Rabbi Preda's grandfather, apparently Rabbi Chia, son of Rabbi Avuya, found a skull that was cast near the gates of Jerusalem, and on it was written, this and yet another. He buried it, but it did not stay buried. He buried it again, and again it did not stay buried. Each time he buried the skull that emerged from the grave. Amar Golgolta shel Yakim Dichtiv Be Kevurat Chamor Yikaver Sucho Berashlech Vegoimer Amar Malkahu Velo Yishar Lizalzoi Be Karka Bishrae Be'osba Besifta Chazita Dibitayu Sabra Deha Deitita Kamaita Hava Taha La Ka Min Sheela Shigara Tenura Vikalta Hainu Dichtiv Zot V'Lacheres. He said, this is no doubt the skull of Jehoiakim, as it is written in this regard. He shall be buried with the burial of a donkey, drawn and cast forth beyond the gates of Jerusalem, Jeremiah 22:19. The fulfillment of this verse is exemplified in the inability to bury him. Rabbi Preda's grandfather said he's a king, and it is inappropriate to display contempt for it. He wrapped the skull in silk and placed it in a box. His wife saw the box and thought this was the skull of his first wife, as he is not forgetting her. She ignited the oven and incinerated the skull. When she informed her husband what she had done, he said, that is the meaning of that which is written on the skull. This and yet another. When she informed her husband this and yet another, not only was his corpse discarded in a demeaning manner, not buried, but his skull was incinerated. That ordeal atoned for some of his transgressions, and he received a share in the world to come. Because his skull was incinerated, Tanya, Amar Shimon ben Elazar, Bishvilato benech asiti, Ma'ot, Bishvil Ma'ot, Goyim achlu al shulchanu. Bishvil shegoyim achlu al shulchanu, Goam galus livanav, Misael el Chizkiya, Yom Chizkiya, Kol ha-mizamen goy, Letov beiso, ומשמש עליו גוירם גולוס לבנו, שנאמר, ובבניך אשר יצאו ממך, אשר תוליד ייקחו והם צריסים והיכל מלך בבל. It is taught in Brighton that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, because of Hezekiah's boastful statement, I have done what is good in your eyes, 2 Kings 20, verse 3. He also asked the prophet inappropriately, what shall be the sign that the Lord shall heal me? 2 Kings 20, verse 8. Because of his question, what shall be the sign, Gentiles ate at his table. The sign was that the sun reversed its path and appeared lower rather than higher on the sundial of Ahaz, leading the king of Babylonia to dispatch messengers to Hezekiah. Because Gentiles ate at his table, it ultimately caused the exile of his descendants. The Gemara comments, this supports the statement of Hezekiah, as Hezekiah said, or Chizkiah. Chizkiah said, anyone who invites an idol worshipper into his house and serves him causes the exile of his descendants, as it is stated. And of your sons who shall issue from you, whom you shall beget, they shall take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylonia. 2 Kings 20:18. Vayismach aleim Chizkiyahu, vayiraem es beis nochaso, es hakesef es hazahav, ואת הבשמים ואת השמן הטוב בגומר. אמר רב, מה בייס נחוסה אשתו השכסה עליהם? ושמואל אמר, בית בייס גנז הבאר אלוהים. רבי יוחנן אמר, זין, אוכל זין הר אלוהים. With regard to the verse, and Hezekiah was glad of them and showed them his treasury, the silver and the gold and the spices and the precious ointment. Isaiah 39, verse 2. Rav says, what is the meaning of Beit Nechoto? It means that his wife, who typically did not appear before strangers for reasons of modesty, poured drinks for them. And Shmuel says it means that he showed them his actual treasury. Rabbi Yochanan says it means that he showed them a weapon so powerful that it breaks another's weapon. Okay. Eicha yeshva v'dad, amar Rabbi Yochanan, b'nei ma laku Yisrael ve'eicho, b'nei shavu shlosh v'shesh krisos shebetoero. Apropos the exile of the descendants of the kings of Judea to Babylonia, the Gemara cites an agadic statement about the destruction of the temple and the sins of the Jewish people that caused it. With regard to the verse, how does the city sit solitary? Lamentations 1:1, Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says, for what reason were the Jewish people stricken and their plight bemoaned with the term Eicha? It is due to the fact that they violated 36 prohibitions punishable with karet that are enumerated in the Torah. Corresponding to the numerological value of Eicha, spelled Aleph, Yud, Kaf, He. Rabbi Yohanan. We're in the 36th name right now. That's amazing. Minud. Exactly half. Into the realms of Manudiwa. Memnu Dalit. It's the 36th name with 72 names. It's also Monday, which is March 72. Well, yeah, Monday. It's going to be Monday. God willing. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Meimar Laku be'alef beit b'pnei shavu ala Torah shenitzna be'alef beit. For Rabbi Yochanan says, for what reason were the Jewish people stricken and their plight bemoaned with an acrostic based on the alphabet, as the Book of Lamentations contains multiple alphabetical acrostics? It is due to the fact that they violated the Torah which is given in the language of the alphabet. Yashva Badad Amar Rav Amar Yochanan Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu Ani Amarti Vayishkol Yisrael Betach Badad Ein Yaakov El Eretz Dagan B'Tirosh Af Shamav Ya'arfu Tar Achshav Yevidan Moshavam Ha'ir Rabasiyam Amar Rava Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shehayu Masim Ketana Legadol Legatan Kedei Shiu Lahem Banim Harbi. With regard to the phrase, does the city sit solitary? Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says that the Holy One, blessed be He, said, I said, and Israel dwells in safety, the fountain of Jacob in solitude, to a land of grain and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew, Deuteronomy 33:28, indicating that their solitude shall be one of wealth and prominence. Now that they have rejected my directive and cleaved to and learned from the Gentiles, their dwelling shall be solitary and sorrow. With regard to the phrase, the city that was full of people, Lamentations 1:1, Rava says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, they would marry a younger female to an older male, and an older female to a younger male, so that they would have many children. Haya Kalmana Amar Rabbi Yehuda Barav Kalmana Barav Kalmana Manish Ela Ki Ishi Shahalach Bala B'Nei Sayam V'Tar Shalach Zalei Habos Yivagoyim Shalos V'Medinois Amar Rav Amar Yochanan Kol Bala B'Shein Oil Kenas and Zoron Adoinei. With regard to the phrase describing Jerusalem, she became like a widow, Lamentations 1:1. Yehuda says that Rav says like a widow, but not an actual widow. Rather, Jerusalem is like a woman whose husband has gone to a country overseas, and yet he intends to return to her. With regard to the phrase we get among the nations and princes among provinces, among the provinces, Lamentations 1:1, Rava says, or Yochanan says, every place they go, when exiled among the nations, the Jewish people become princes to their masters due to their wisdom. Tanu Rabbanan, the sages taught in Braita there was an incident involving two Jewish people who were taken captive on Mount Carmel, and their captor was walking behind them.